Not good. We're on Billy Goat Ridge, 3 o'clock trek. It has changed quite a bit since I drove it last. I had to winch one little bit, but my fault, I didn't get out. I knew this one step here is the hard one. And yeah, chose a little bit wrong line there. But then Joachim went up, did that section okay on a different line. But trying to get up one of the steps, we had a very loud bang. Morning, 6 o'clock, or actually 5:30, getting ready for the Flinders Ranges, cruiser in the back, and packing last final things, cameras, and then we're off.
Things for the car.
Okay, already you have
And then I
your
might
head.
bring one coloring book.
Lights off. And go. Bill Pin, quick stop at the Grumpy Baker. Let's see how grumpy is. Get something to eat. So I updated all iPads, everything yesterday. Now I'm trying to load Explorers and only get a grey screen. I also last night tried to import a track log into Explorers. Didn't work, bug in the system. While David, he is good. I mean, he responds quickly and he will upload an update. It just doesn't help me much because I'm out of reception soon. And by the time that's released, so at the moment I can't import anything. I can't create easier route. Yeah, just frustrating. There is, not enough bug testing, I reckon. And now, if I rely on that app, it doesn't work. I mean, fortunately I use MemoryMaps for all now as my main app, but just not good. For the first 2 days it was only Steve, Summer and myself, and we planned to catch up with Joachim and Virginia in Peterborough. The plan was to make it to Cobar on the first day, as I booked a hotel there for the first night. So just pulled in here, Cobar. Just fit in, beautiful. Stayed here last time actually, on my Darling trip. 6:15 in the morning, and we're heading off. It's a long day today, up to Bendleby Ranges hopefully. It's 8.5 hours driving, so we'll see. Steve is outside, he sleeps in his car, so he stayed somewhere out of town, and now we're heading off. To be honest, driving at night, I mean, you need good lights, it's mandatory, makes such a difference. I mean, with normal light you see nothing. I mean, now the light comes up here, but it's getting daylight. But until 10 minutes ago you wouldn't have seen any kangaroo, nothing, so that makes all the difference. And the laser lamps, the sentinels, they just provide these very even outputs, actually very similar to my light bar. I have to confirm on the footage whether it actually goes further than the light bar, but yeah, brilliant lights. These are two spotties and you don't really see any leaks, any dark spots. It's just the light distribution of these laser is the best I have seen, that's for sure. One of the next quick stops was Vulcania, and it was awesome to see the Darling River with water. The past few years there was always hardly any water in the river. And on we went towards the South Australian border and Peterborough, where we would catch up with Joachim and Virginia. South Australia is fruit fly free, so we had to cross the quarantine checkpoint and show our fridge.
That's the only thing I had. And I just have a look in the back anyway, please.
So we have not too much rain at the Bendleby Ranges. Peterborough also had then the first supermarket in South Australia where we stocked up with fresh fruit and veggies. We drove a little later than expected towards the Bendleby Ranges and met Charlie and Kylie, who were on the way into town.
Journey.
Long.
Yeah, all good. Big long day.
Yeah.
Got some maps for you.
Yep.
And because we're not there to greet you and it's almost dark, I'll just say go straight into your campsite.
Yes. Yeah.
Stopping here.
We never plan a night drive, but every trip it happens for some reason. You know, today we were probably an hour late because of all the construction work, and yeah, that really spoiled setting up during daylight and me taking the wrong turn. I have to agree, Summer noticed that, so we're going the back way in now, which is usually one-way track. So we came in here from the bottom and should have just continued on here via this green easy track to our camp 21, but instead we took a left turn here, went the Black Oak Drive and then the Gum Creek Drive towards the campsite, which yeah was a little bit more interesting.
We just got to our campsite for the night.
Especially for the longer trips, I'm very considerate with the weight. To keep it as light as possible, we both took the Austrail stretcher, which is very light and lighter than a swag or the Oz tent stretcher. Each campsite at the Bendleby Ranges has firewood undercover, so we didn't have to look for firewood. That is a big bonus, especially if you arrive at night. Yeah, first morning, Bendleby Ranges. Very good night. Fairly fresh, but not too crazy actually. Not as cold as I thought it would be, at least tonight. We at the Riverbend campground. It is just beautiful here, there is no doubt about that. It's Joachim, his Defender, and behind there is Steve. Emergency tarp. I didn't really consider that we stay, usually we do touring, that we actually stay on the same spot for 2 or 3 nights. Otherwise I would have bought the Hexa tarp, but these I had in the car. For emergencies I used the poles I still have them from the Foxwing actually in the car. Yeah, so they're not for this. And my awning pegs and so on. But at least that way here now we can leave the table and so on outside at night, put the chairs under it. Yeah, not perfect. Just had new alternator V-belts put on, because that is still something which needs adjusting, but the belts are new, they're settled in and they're a little bit loose, so trying to tighten them. It's a bit of a bastard to get in there. Gonna get down for big driving around the Hungary Ranges. We'll go down to 18 for the time being, cold. May go a little lower, we'll see. Just going for a little drive in the Bendleby Ranges, trying to find the link track. I think that's a new track connecting 2 tracks. Supposedly 9 out of 10 here in the Bendleby Ranges. Bendleby consists out of 2 ranges actually, the Bendleby where we are, and then the Hungary Ranges, which are a bit further up, and gonna go there tomorrow. Not sure whether I actually driven the link track or not. I think I have, it's probably up here. The link track has some pretty deep wombat holes on a steep incline, so in an IFS vehicle I think you would lift quite a bit of wheel there and probably would need lockers or quite a bit momentum. Next it was Joachim and Virginia's turn. The Defender is also on 35s, has pretty good flex and is a very capable 4-wheel drive. With good suspension travel, Joachim's tires never lose contact with the ground and he drives it easily without any lockers. This is the second part of the link track. I decided to drive the little harder line on the left, which has a little rock step on exit.
The hard line on the...
The Hidden Valley walk is an around 3.8 kilometer return walk and goes through, the Hidden Valley, which is a small canyon. It's quite picturesque with a bit uneven terrain and one or two little climbs, but it's easy walking and a good walk to do when you are in the Bendleby Ranges. I like to encourage dads to go and travel with their kids. I started camping with my kids when they were 2.5 years old and took my son on the first longer solo trip when he was 7. My daughter has now been with me 3 times on long four-wheel drive trips, and it's a great bonding opportunity and creates memories we will never forget. After the Hidden Valley walk, we made our way towards a sunset lookout to watch the sunset. Along the way were a few little ditches which tested the suspension travel. Joachim, what happened?
The fire, and it's coming through the vents of the brake disc, and I think I have a sort of axle seal or hub seal
leak
issue here.
Saturday morning, Joachim left towards town to see whether he can get some shot grease so he can convert his hubs if need to be from oil-fed hubs to greased hubs, because he had a little leak there yesterday. Hasn't leaked anymore though. It was a fairly fresh night. I actually had to get up in the middle of the night and grab my sheepskin for my feet. But after that was good. And now we have actually sunshine. So we're heading over to the Hungary Ranges, having a look there. Before driving into Hungary Ranges, please see the staff for track conditions and leave details on the whiteboard at the kiosk. Please keep in mind, the track skill level may vary with seasonal conditions. Please always check with staff before you drive any of these tracks. I thought we doing the Hungary Highway with Steve in his nearly unmodified Toyota Land Cruiser Troopy. As last time I have driven the Hungary Highway, it was in fog and we didn't really have a clear view, so I was keen to see how it is in nice weather. The Hungary Highway has a track skill level of high. There are a few smaller rock steps on a steep incline, which do require careful wheel placement. The view from the ridge point is absolutely spectacular and well worth the drive up there. If you have vertigo or Billy Goat Bluff in the Victorian High Country is a challenge for you, then the Hungary Highway will definitely give you some adrenaline spikes. Next it was Steve's turn in the unmodified Troopy. He chose a little bit safer line to the left because he is on much smaller tires and has less suspension travel, but he also tackled the track without any issues. Mind you, he did admit later around the campfire that he would not driven it by himself and was glad that I pushed him to get up there. This drive is really so worth it. I mean, have a look at this backdrop. It is just stunning. A 20-degree descent angle may not sound that bad, however, if you have some pretty good drop-offs to the left and right, it can get your adrenaline level up a little, especially if you don't like heights. When you stand on top, there's a little step before the descent starts, and it looks like you drive into the abyss, as you cannot see where you're driving until your nose points downwards. Parts of the Hungary highway descent are a bit steeper with 26 degrees. This is definitely an interesting descent where you want to have a low first gear and working brakes. However, the aim on these steep descents is to not lock up the brakes and always keep the tires rolling, so that you don't lose steering and possibly control over your four-wheel drive. On the way back to camp, we went via the Quartz Gorge. That's a very pleasant, easy drive through a beautiful gorge which has quite interesting quartz formations which run in veins from the top to the bottom of the hills. On the way back to camp, with Charlie's permission, Summer had a few more driving lessons. Just keep in mind there could be oncoming vehicles. So
Yeah, if there are, I'll just move to the side.
you see it. Watch the sheepies, huh? Bendleby Ranges has communal toilets and hot showers. So even if you're camping, you can have a hot shower. And if you don't like the drop dunny every campground has, you also have a proper toilet there. These are great features to have, which not every station offers. To offload and back up all my footage, I also carry a Gold Zero Yeti 500 with me, as unfortunately the new M1 MacBook Pros need to be powered if you want to have two external hard drives attached. This untethers me from having to stay right next to the car and makes offloading the footage for me much easier. So today we have Camper's Pantry, the lamb casserole. Summer wanted food now. I'm still busy here with the table and everything where we cook on. So that's what it is. I find the Radix or Camper's Pantry dehydrated meals great to carry when you need a quick dinner.
And then he employed Joachim's ex-boss.
I thought yesterday we had a pair of crackers in there and we saw them chewed. And I opened the rear tailgate and a mouse comes out. Now they're dug into, because everything else is in boxes, they're dug into my Camper's Pantry. Yeah, and my Radix. So out back you really got to watch it. We had that last time as well, huh? They're dug in, bloody hell. And it's not that they freaking eat one, they chew everything on. Interestingly, the mouse did not touch the on-track meals. All my freeze-dried food is pretty much gone. They didn't seem to like the packaging of the on-track meals, as they even gnawed holes into the wet wipes and anything plastic. That is alright, the pepper steak, that's wet. Everything else is chewed. Oop. On this Flinders trip, I didn't initially plan in the Bendleby Ranges, as I had been there recently.
However, Joachim and Virginia hadn't been at the Bendleby Ranges and asked me whether we could include that in the trip. As I'm always happy to get back to the Bendleby Ranges, it didn't need much twisting of my arm to plan 3-4 days here in the ranges. Given Virginia and Joachim missed a day driving yesterday because they were in town to buy parts for the Defender, I thought on the last day I'd take them up Bendleby Ridge, which is one of the more technical but also highlight treks of the Hungary ranges. Overall, the trek conditions of all other treks were pretty similar to when I drove them around 1.5 years ago. You have steep ascents and descents, beautiful views and very rocky country, so you definitely want to run good AT or MT LT tires. I personally run the BFG KM3 and they really haven't let me down so far. We started Bendleby Ridge as a 4 o'clock trek and I assumed, like all the other treks, that not that much had changed. So I kept my tires on around 20 psi and really started driving because I still thought I had a good idea of the trek. Bendleby Ridge is around a 4 kilometer long ridge trek with a stunning view. There are steep ascents, few obstacles and rock steps, and it's a single lane trail. You also have some steep drop-offs to the left and right, which can make mistakes costly. If you drive it in winter, in the late afternoon, you also drive into the sunlight, which can make it more difficult to assess the obstacles from the inside of the car. I was in the lead and a little complacent, as I assumed, like the last treks, not much had changed. While this does not look too bad from above, I should have jumped out and had a look. Instead, I flicked my locker override switch, which usually enables both lockers with a single switch, not realizing that both lockers were individually switched off. I usually keep them on and only use the override switch. In this case, no lockers brought me to a stop halfway up the obstacle, and I picked up a fair bit of the front passenger wheel. After a quick outside assessment, and given it was a long way down and I had summer in the car, I opted for the safe option of using the winch to pull the front of the car down and over the obstacle. Keep in mind, all the winching is done via my two 100 Ah DCS lithium batteries. A short winch solved the situation safely. I also lost the air out of one tire due to pressure from a rock, so I quickly aired up. Joachim did a bit of road building and then opted for the safer left-hand line. The next obstacle, which I already cleared, was a reasonable size rock step. I crawled up the front wheels and then used a little bit of momentum to carry the heavy rear over. The first attempt was too gentle to bring the rear wheels up, so Joachim gave it another go.
Oh shit!
Let me show you that again, this time from the front. Oh! That was the rear diff. This is probably one of the worst spots where you can have a catastrophic failure. In the middle of a one-way, single-lane ridge trek with no escape to the left or right, you can only go up or back down. A little bit further up was a reasonable flat spot, so we decided to winch Joachim up to this flatter area so we could properly secure the car and decide how to proceed further. One of the reasons why I usually have a D-shackle hitch receiver on the rear is so that other people can winch off my car. Both of Joachim's drive shafts and axles were okay, so the only other option were crown wheel and or pinion. We determined that it would not be wise to attempt recovery with the cruiser, as we were only halfway into the trek and there were still some technical sections on steep terrain to come. Any failure of recovery equipment and brakes could be disastrous due to a 100-meter drop on each side of the single-lane trek. I had a chat with Charlie from the Bendleby Ranges and he suggested recovery with a 20-ton Dozer on treks the next day. Given Joachim and Virginia had a rooftop tent, Charlie provided both a room in the shearer's quarters and offered to pick both up from the top of Bendleby Ridge, as I had no rear seats in my cruiser. We packed all of Joachim's and Virginia's essentials in the cruiser, and I made my way up to the top to catch up with Charlie while Virginia and Joachim walked to the top.
Yep, yeah.
These were some of the obstacles which still needed to be tackled, but now being aware that the trek has changed significantly, I put a bit more care into my line selection and drove the rest with ease. While the cruiser is not a play truck like Tiny, my Jeep or the Hilux Gas is currently building for me, even with weighing nearly 4 tons, it's still a very capable 4-wheel drive and can tackle with ease most obstacles you may encounter while 4-wheel drive touring. After Joachim and Virginia were safe and sound at the shearer's quarters, it was time to get dinner on for us.
No, I'm not that desperate.
Some cooked onions, and we have some vegetables, being capsicum, broccoli, mini corn, and lots of other things. So we're just going to wait for that to cook, and all the great juices are going to go in to the sausages, which are going to make it taste deluxe. Put the lid back on. Don't let any of the heat out, and let the vegetables defrost. And then we'll come back in 5 minutes after the ad break. Thanks for watching Summer's Kitchen. You layer the vegetables around the sausages on the wrap, and you've got a beautiful delicacy. A camping favourite. Actually, a camping first, but welcome back to Summer's Kitchen. Yum, yum, yum.
Yeah, another day at the Bendleby Ranges, and today is recovery day. So for Joachim's stranded car on Billy Goat Ridge.
To recover the car all the way down there. Don't know if you can see it. So we're walking down with all the gear.
Joachim pulled the rear drive shaft out so that the car could be towed and driven at least in front-wheel drive. By the time Joachim prepared the Defender, the Dozer had made its way up to the other side of Billy Goat Ridge and then down to the start of the recovery. It was a spectacle to see the 20-ton Dozer going down this narrow, rocky track. While we discussed a few ideas and approaches, from lowering the Defender back down to the bottom to recovering it to the top, the ultimate decision was Joachim's, and he opted for a combination of winching using the Dozer as an anchor point and being towed by the Dozer. As you can see well here, on most parts of this trek you're never far away from a sheer drop off to the left or right. Being on side angles here, with a lifted high 4-wheel drive with a rooftop tent on the top and only front wheel drive, is a bit scary. After the initial winch to get the car closer to the Dozer, the plan was to tow it all the way up. However, that plan got sidetracked when the Dozer could not make it up one of the steps with the Defender attached. Charlie in the Dozer gave it a pretty good go trying to pull that Defender up there, but even on tracks he could not clear the step with the additional 3.5 ton of the Defender attached. So the Dozer had to make it up himself, and then the Defender winched up using the Dozer as an anchor point. I also nearly lost my drone here when flying into a tree. I was quite amazed that the drone actually recovered. It seemed to have flipped over for a split second, righted itself again, and did not crash. I flew back and replaced one propeller and was up flying again. The video doesn't really do this trek justice, and even the Dozer by itself had issues getting up that step and needed to use the rear hook as a kind of lifting point to get him over this step. Once the Dozer finally made it up, the winch was hooked up again and the car further secured with a 40-ton tow strap, and then Joachim winched step by step up this obstacle. Joachim was not too comfortable sitting in the car while being recovered, so he decided it was safer to operate the winch from the outside or steer the vehicle from the outside while being towed. We all thought sitting in the vehicle was a safer option, but that was his decision. And at the end, we did the recovery without any issues and everyone was safe. Joachim and Virginia's trip was cut short once more, and they had to wait for parts to get them home and then make a proper repair. Steve, Summer and myself were heading on to the second Flinders destination. However, before we would be leaving the next morning, Charlie wanted to show me the new four-wheel drive club area with a shelter he created in the Hungary Ranges. This would make a perfect camping location for bigger groups like four-wheel drive clubs. The oversized covered area would allow bigger groups to be dry and sheltered even if the weather wasn't too good. There's also easy access for camper trailers and two-wheel drive cars. If you, like me, come from a different state and have a 2-day travel to just get there, I reckon you can do at least a week of driving in the Bendleby and Hungary Ranges. And I think the treks from mild to wild are actually a perfect training area for any four-wheel drive club. The following day, it was time to say goodbye to Virginia, Joachim, as well as Charlie and the Bendleby Ranges team. Charlie went out of his way to help, and without it, it would have been quite a different recovery.
Charlie, thanks for everything. Huh?
You're welcome.
See you next time around. Thanks for all your help with little hill recoveries and so on.
I hope the rest of your journey's good too.
Yeah, same
Some
here.
good scenery.
And see you soon. Huh?
All right, take care.
All the best.
In the next episode, we discover some hidden gems in the northern Flinders Ranges. After one very cold night in the Flinders Ranges National Park, we had an invitation to Mudalulu Station, which is a not so well-known gem in the Flinders. We walked to the stunning Ferguson Gorge, visited Nukalina Mine, and with permission took the closed copper trek to Warrawena. Easily one of the top 3 scenic treks in Australia, and I hope it will be open to the public at some stage. Afterwards, we explored Warrawena Conservation Park and drive the stunning Mount Gill trek. So make sure to subscribe so you get a notification when the videos are out. So guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please keep in mind this is a self-funded channel, so I would greatly appreciate if you could help me out by sharing, liking and subscribing. And if you can, please consider head over to Patreon or buy me a coffee. And with the equivalent of a cup of coffee or 2 per month, you can really help me making these videos. Thanks a lot for watching and see you along the treks.